Hare Krishna. I'm going to read a verse from Bhagavatam about Bhagavad Gita. Not this verse. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So since today is Christmas, I thought I'll start off with a quote about Jesus Christ. So this is Srila Prabhupada, this is in the Science of Self-Realization. It says, Jesus Christ was such a great personality, the Son of God, the representative of God. He had no fault. Still he was crucified. He wanted to deliver God consciousness, but in return they crucified him. They were so thankless. They could not appreciate his preaching, but we appreciate him and give him all honor as the representative of God. Hare Krishna. So I selected this verse from today's Gita Jayanti, from the first canto, 15th chapter, and this is text number 27. Desha kalartha yuktani rittapopasamani cha haranti smaratas-chittam govinda vihitani me. Desha kalartha yuktani rittapopasamani cha haranti smaratas-chittam govinda vihitani me. देशकालार्थयुक्तानि हरन्ति परसंस्कृतम् गोविन्दाभिहितानि मे देशकालार्थयुक्तानि ऋतपोपशमानि च हरन्ति स्मरतश्चित्तम् गोविन्दाभिहितानि मे. Yes. Word for word. Desha, space. Kala, time. Artha, importance. Yuktani, impregnated with. Rit, the heart. Tapa, burning. Ushamani, extinguishing. Cha, and. Haranti, are attracting. Smarataha, by remembering. Chittam, mind. Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Pleasure. Abhihitani, narrated by. Me, unto me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Please repeat. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Purport. Herein Arjun refers to the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita not for the benefit of Arjun alone, but also for all time and in all lands. The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It is nicely presented by the Lord Himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and the Vedanta Sutras. It is put within the study of the great historical epic Mahabharata, which was especially prepared for the less intelligent class, namely the women, the laborers, and those who are worthless descendants of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and higher sections of the Vaishyas. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjun on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Again, after the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people, when Arjun was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence, he wanted again to remember the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned that the Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times, not only for solace from all kinds of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglements which may embarrass one in some critical hour. Very beautiful, powerful sentence. The merciful Lord left behind him the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible to material eyesight. Material senses cannot have any estimation of the Supreme Lord, but by his inconceivable power the Lord can incarnate himself to the sense perception of the conditioned souls in a suitable manner through the agency of matter, which is also another form of the Lord's manifested energy. Thus the Bhagavad Gita, or any authentic scriptural sound representation of the Lord, is also the incarnation of the Lord. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. One can derive the same benefit from the Bhagavad Gita as Arjun did in the personal presence of the Lord. Very, very beautiful, very powerful purport. The faithful human being who is desirous of being liberated from the clutches of material existence can very easily take advantage of the Bhagavad Gita, and with this in view, the Lord instructed Arjun as if Arjun were in need of it. In Bhagavad Gita, 5 important factors of knowledge have been delineated pertaining to 1. The Supreme Lord, 2. The living being, 3. Nature, 4. Time and space, 5. The process of activity. Out of these, the Supreme Lord and the living being are qualitatively one. The difference between the two has been analyzed as the difference between the whole and the part and parcel. Nature is inert matter, displaying the interaction of 3 different modes, and eternal time and unlimited space are considered to be beyond the existence of the material nature. Activities of the living being are different varieties of aptitudes which can entrap or liberate the living being within and without material nature. All these subject matters are concisely discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, and later the subject matters are elaborated in the Srimad Bhagavatam for further enlightenment. Out of the 5 subjects, the Supreme Lord, the living entity, nature, and time and space are eternal. But the living entity, nature, and time are under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is absolute and completely independent of any other control. The Supreme Lord is the supreme controller. The material activity of the living being is beginningless, but it can be rectified by transferal into the spiritual quality. Thus, it can cease its material qualitative reactions. Both the Lord and the living entity are cognizant, and both have a sense of identification, of being conscious as a living force. But the living being, under the condition of material nature called Mahat Tattva, misidentifies himself as being different from the Lord. The whole scheme of Vedic wisdom is targeted to the aim of eradicating such a misconception and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. When such an illusion is eradicated by knowledge and renunciation, the living beings are responsible actors and enjoyers also. The sense of enjoyment in the Lord is real, but such a sense in the living being is a sort of wishful desire only. This difference in consciousness is a distinction of the 2 identities, namely the Lord and the living being. Otherwise, there is no difference between the Lord and the living being. The living being is therefore eternally one and different simultaneously. The whole instruction of the Bhagavad Gita stands on this principle. There's one last paragraph. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord and the living beings are both described as Sanatan or eternal, and the Lord's abode far beyond the material sky is also described as Sanatan. The living being is invited to live in the Sanatan existence of the Lord, and the process which can help a living being to approach the Lord's abode, where the liberated activity of the soul is exhibited, is called Sanatan Dharma. One cannot, however, reach the eternal abode of the Lord without being free from the misconception of material identification. And the Bhagavad Gita gives us the clue how to achieve this stage of perfection. The process of being liberated from the misconception of material identification is called, in different stages, fruitive activity, empiric philosophy, and devotional service, up to transcendental realization. Such transcendental realization is made possible by dovetailing all the above items in relation with the Lord. Prescribed duties of the human being as directed in the Vedas can gradually purify the sinful mind of the conditioned soul and raise him to a stage of knowledge. The purified stage of acquiring knowledge becomes the basis of devotional service to the Lord. As long as one is engaged in researching the solution of the problems of life, his knowledge is called Gyan or purified knowledge. But on realizing the actual solution of life, one becomes situated in the devotional service of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the problems of life by discriminating the soul from the elements of matter and proves by all reason and argument that the soul is indestructible in all circumstances and that the outer covering of matter, the body and the mind, change for another term of material existence which is full of miseries. The Bhagavad Gita is therefore meant for terminating all different types of miseries, and Arjun took shelter of this great knowledge which had been imparted to him during the Kurukshetra battle. So such a beautiful purport, like it's like a giving the entire contents of Bhagavad Gita and also the glories of Bhagavad Gita in one very powerful purport. Okay. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shambhakti Swami Tinami Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasha. Hare Krishna. So before I begin speaking, I would like to seek the blessings of Maharaj and all the wonderful Vaishnavas here. Please, by your blessings, we can speak a few words on the glories of Bhagavad Gita. So this verse is actually spoken by Arjun himself, and the theme here is, like in the previous chapter we read of the Bhagavata, we read that how Yudhishthira Maharaj was sent Arjun to visit Dwarka, and it's been like almost like 7 months and Arjun has not returned. And Yudhishthira also is actually seeing many inauspicious signs. You know, he's seeing that the jackals are crying in the morning, and then people are engaged in sinful activities of greed, and then his left side of his body is quivering, and that's actually considered an inauspicious sign. So he's seeing all these inauspicious signs, and he's wondering that Arjun has not come for so long. And then in the back of his mind, he remembers that Narad Muni had kind of given an indication that the time for Krishna's departure is actually close. So he was thinking that, oh, is it possible that Krishna has departed? But he was, when Arjun finally he came, he saw Arjun like he came with his head bowed and he was crying. And then King Yudhishthira started asking Arjun that, oh, how are the Yadavas, and how are, this person, and how are this relative? And, why are you crying? Did you not, protect someone who is to be protected? He gives all these different reasons, and finally says, that, are you crying because our dear Lord has left this planet? And then Arjun actually in this chapter, he starts by saying that, yes, our dear Lord Hari, who has actually protected us in all different circumstances. And he gives an entire list, like so many different situations that they went through in the Mahabharata, and where it was only by Lord Krishna's mercy that they were actually protected. And he actually says, all my entire strength was because of that dear Lord Shri Krishna. And also Bhima here, who is as powerful as 10,000 elephants, his strength was also because of that dear Lord Shri Krishna. And now he has actually departed from our vision. And then Arjun actually says this verse. So he says, now I'm attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. So I would like to talk a little bit about all circumstances of time and space. But before that, I would like to, Bhagavad Gita is actually recognized as a classic. We say that it's a classic book. And yesterday I was looking like, what actually defines a book to be classic. And the first point that actually came up is, and this is like a person by Christopher Smith. He defines a classic as any book that is not a new book, one that has merits rereading 5, 10, even 100 years or more after its publication. And then another meaning was given that a book that has never finished saying what it has to say. And I'm saying like this is so perfect for the Bhagavad Gita. Like you could read the same book 5, 10, 15, 100 times, and even 100 years later, and it is actually relevant every time we read the Bhagavad Gita, we can actually get a deeper meaning in the verses of the Bhagavad Gita. So the first one is like overflow of meaning, and we actually see like so many different acharyas, saintly people, they actually write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, you know, and how Prabhupada said that there were like over 600 different commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, you know. So imagine it's just one book, you know, it's one book, but how come like all these different people are deriving different meanings from the Bhagavad Gita, you know? So one way it is also the glory of Gita, like, you know, like Prabhupada is actually, you know, he speaks critically about this, but it is the glory of Gita that the same section, that same verses, 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita, different people have derived so many different meanings from the Bhagavad Gita. It is just like flooded with meaning. It's an overflow of meaning. And also in our devotional life, like, you know, our first reading of Bhagavad Gita and then our 10th reading of Bhagavad Gita, we get such a different meaning. We get more and more insight into the same text of the Bhagavad Gita. Right? So that's the first one, overflow of meaning. And also, you know, like it's when any person like becomes more famous spiritually, it's almost like a mark that unless you have a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, you're not recognized. You know? So everyone like, you know, like, oh yeah, now spiritually I'm growing, people are recognizing me. I should write a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, then I'll be recognized. So that's the glory of the Gita. And then second point is how it is relevant across vast periods of time. You know, in Bhagavad Gita itself, in the 4th chapter, text 1, it says, Imam vivashate yogam proktavan aham avyam vivashwan manave paha manur ishva kave bhavit. And the purport, Prabhupada actually, he kind of calculates when Krishna spoke this knowledge to the sun god Vivashwan. And he says that it must have happened at least 120 million years ago. You know, and he calculates the age of Manu and then sun god and so on. And then, so we see the point that even 120 million years ago, the same conversation has taken place. And even now, the same conversation is being read, and so much meaning is actually being derived from the words of Bhagavad Gita. So, as this verse says, you know, like Arjuna is saying, in all circumstances of time and space. So, there's no limitation of time to the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, because actually it is eternal wisdom for each and every one of us. So, that's the glory of Bhagavad Gita. If someone challenges that, oh, Bhagavad Gita is not so relevant, and we get that, we go out to book distribution and people say, oh, Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago it was spoken to Arjun. Arjun was a warrior, and it was a very different situation. Now it's very different. But that's not true. The Bhagavad Gita, instructions of Bhagavad Gita are as relevant today as it was 120 million years ago, as it was relevant 5,000 years ago. And so it is very relevant today. And then relevance across different, you know, space, across even like different faiths and cultures, right? So, you know, when we go out for book distribution, like how Vaisheshika Prabhu actually says, we distribute Bhagavad Gita on its own merit. You know? So one of the things that, you know, he shows is like you can just turn on the backside of Bhagavad Gita. You have all these famous personalities who have derived inspiration from the Bhagavad Gita. Right? So there's on our Bhagavad Gita on the back, there is Thoreau, there's Emerson, there's Mahatma Gandhi, and also we know like Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and all like Albert Einstein. All these people have derived some inspiration from the Bhagavad Gita. And it's not that that they all like identify themselves as Hindus or like, you know, say, oh, I'm a Hindu. It's not that they are connected with like the religious, you know, point that, oh yeah, I'm Hindu and hence I'm religious. They have derived some inspiration from the Bhagavad Gita, irrespective of their background, where they are from, their nature and so on. Right? Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., and Mahatma Gandhi and so on. Right? So Mahatma Gandhi, actually his favorite section from the Bhagavad Gita is actually in the 2nd chapter, where it talks of Arjun asked Krishna that what are the symptoms of a Stitadir Muni. In 255 it says, Arjuna vacha stita pragyasya kabhasa samadhi samadhi tasya keshava stitadir kim prabhaseta kim asita vrajeta kim. How does he walk? A spiritual person, how does he walk? How does he sit? How does he interact with the world? And Krishna says, Prajati yada kaman sarvam partha manogatan atmani etvad tushta stita pragyasa tadochate. That when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind thus purified finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be a Stitadir Muni. Right? So this is the point that Mahatma Gandhi stressed, and he actually, I was reading, he said that Mahatma Gandhi said that this section is the ultimate conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, and he said like the author does not have anything more to say than this. But that was his conclusion, but we don't agree with that point. But he just said, okay, this point, how the mind can find satisfaction, when the mind is not disturbed in the threefold miseries and one can find satisfaction within, that is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. And then we have Lokmanya Tilak, like Prabhupada often quotes Lokmanya Tilak in his lectures. And he says, this is actually from, just read this section from Prabhupada's lecture. There is a big commentary on Bhagavad Gita by a great scholar and political leader, Lokmanya Tilak. So one of his devotee, he's also politician. When I was in London in 1968, so he has got a society there. They are preaching the Tilak's political view like that. He has got, so he came to see me, and he was very much eulogizing Lokmanya Tilak, that he has written his big commentary, Karma Yoga. So he wanted to invite me to talk on Tilak's great task. So I told him that Tilak does not understand Bhagavad Gita. So immediately he was surprised. Then we had a talk, and I convinced him that Tilak was a politician, maybe a big scholar, but that does not mean he can understand Bhagavad Gita. So I'll come to the point of how Prabhupada's mood and emphasis on understanding Bhagavad Gita and the theme of Bhagavad Gita. But Lokmanya Tilak is a very famous politician in India, and he has written his own commentary, and his point was on the emphasis of Karma Yoga. And then we have Albert Einstein. He actually famously said that when I get a glimpse of the creation of God in the Bhagavad Gita, then everything else seems insignificant. So imagine, like, even Albert Einstein has studied the Bhagavad Gita to a depth where he got a glimpse of the God's creation in the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah? So, this point, that how it is applicable, like all these people have derived so much inspiration. I feel like sometimes we, when you go to book distribution, we actually hold on that. We are a little bit hesitant that, Bhagavad Gita, it talks about God, how will people actually receive it? But, all these people have derived so much inspiration from this book. So we should, the point comes to my mind that should be confident to just present Bhagavad Gita as it is. All these people have derived inspiration, that is something for you. You're a Christian, you're this, you're that. It does not matter. That is inspiration for you in the Bhagavad Gita. And then the famous that Robert Oppenheimer, that's famously said that when he saw the first detonation of the nuclear weapon, he actually quoted 2 verses from the Bhagavad Gita, from the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And he actually, when he saw that a nuclear weapon, he quoted the verse where the Vishwarupa is defined that even if you consider thousands of suns rising together, that does not compare to the effulgence coming from you, from the Vishwarupa. And the second verse he quoted is, time I am, death I am, kalosmi. So even Oppenheimer, it said that he studied Sanskrit because he did not want to go through a translation. He wanted to directly understand the Bhagavad Gita. So amazing, like how many people have actually, derived inspiration and studied the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, then one more point I want to come before we come to the theme, that how Prabhupada's mood of appreciating and understanding the Bhagavad Gita, right? So we talked about how Bhagavad Gita is, it is a rich overflow of meaning. It is relevant across different periods of time. It is relevant across different cultures. All these great thinkers have derived so much inspiration. So anyone who gets the copy of Bhagavad Gita has some meaning to derive, some benefit for him, right? And then the other main point here is how Prabhupada says that the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is for all humankind. It is not for a particular section. Who is this knowledge relevant to? It is relevant to each one of us. Everyone in this world, this Bhagavad Gita is relevant. And why is that? And then like if you see even from Arjun's point of view, like how Bhagavad Gita starts itself gives us a hint of who this knowledge is can benefit. Right? So Arjun, like we see like how he's such a skilled warrior, and in the first chapter where we see Arjun giving different arguments not for fighting, we see Arjun's mood of compassion. Right? First, the first point he says like, oh, all these so many people will be killed, then so why to fight this war? And then also it shows Arjun's mood of detachment, where he says like, what is the use if we get this kingdom and all the people with whom we would like to enjoy will be killed? And he gives all the reasons, like so intelligent. Like we see that if you see the qualities of Arjun, you'll see that yes, he's compassionate, he's expert in he's such a powerful, like previously just in that war of Virat, right? He actually defeated all the Kauravas single-handedly, right? So he's so powerful. He has all the qualities which are actually eulogized by the society. He has everything, but still he actually finds himself helpless in this situation. He finds himself confused. Okay, what is my duty? That basically shows that even though one may be materially very opulent, one may have all good material qualities, but still that all those material qualities are not good enough for him to solve the real problems of life. To actually find out what is the real duty of each one of us. It is not enough. However expert one may be in all the material field, it's not enough. So it's basically showing that how this knowledge is for everyone, irrespective of what you have. Like if Arjun, who was so qualified, is actually requiring the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, then what to talk of each one of us. And also we see like the intensity of problem that was actually resolved by the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Like how in the end of this first chapter and starting of second chapter, we see Arjun's symptoms, like he's actually his mouth is drying up and he's shivering and tears are flowing from his eyes and he cannot even stand. That is the intensity of problem. Like how many times do we experience such a problem that we cannot stand and our mouth is drying up and So just to make the point that such an intense situation and the solution is there. So any of our problems, the solution is actually there in the Gita. And what is the solution? And the solution is actually so applicable. The first point that Krishna actually tells Arjun, that your problem is that you are identifying, you are taking multiple identities. You are saying that, oh, I am the grandson of Bhishma Pitama, I am the disciple of Dronacharya, and hence in all these different identities, you are actually getting bewildered. And the real solution will only be there when we actually understand our real Swarupa or a real identity as eternal spirit soul. And that's the first instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, applicable to everyone. And then further, further Krishna actually points out to be established in a real identity and to take shelter of the permanent. Like we take shelter of so many things. We take shelter of our wealth. We take shelter of our electronic gadgets. That these gadgets are there. This will save me. I'm safe. I have the latest GPS system. I have this on my phone. I'll be safe. But we take shelter of all these things, but all those are actually fallible, and the only real shelter is Lord Shri Krishna. So, and also this point about like how Prabhupada mentioned in the purport we just read, he talked of the Bhagavad Gita is talking of Sanatan Dharma, and in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita in page 16, I really like that section, because whenever we go out on book distribution, if you meet Christians or all these people who are fanatic and come, oh, why this? Jesus is the only way. I feel like just like read that page 16 and 17 of the introduction. It's so wonderful. Prabhupada actually in that section he says that religion, as we know, they have a starting and an ending. But this knowledge is not like those religions. It is the eternal duty of every living entity. And that is the Sanatan Dharma. So, and then like how in 2.7, Arjun actually says, Karpanya doshopahat swava, prishami tvam dharma samudacheta. I am confused about my dharma. What kind of dharma? he was confused anyway because of multiple identities. But the solution is to understand our real dharma as a part and parcel of Krishna. What is our real dharma in that position? And that is the only thing that can give us the ultimate solution. You know? And also, again, coming back to the point, how this is applicable across all, you know, religions and all faiths and so on. Like, there's a very famous interview of Prabhupada, like it's shown in different movies also, where Prabhupada is being interviewed. I forget where this is, but you see Prabhupada is like tapping on his TV interview. And then in that, the reporter asked Prabhupada, so do you not find any conflicts? Like, you're coming and preaching about God, but what about like Christians and Muslims, and don't you find? And Prabhupada like so confident, no, I don't find any conflicts. Like, there is one God, and our duty is to develop our love for God. Like, so Prabhupada's presentation is that this knowledge is not sectarian, it's for everyone. And hence Bhagavad Gita, that knowledge is, everyone can derive so much benefit from the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, now let's come to, let's see, I don't much time now. But I was going to talk a little bit about like how Bhagavad Gita is not just any philosophy, like a theoretical philosophy, but it's so practical. You know, so practical. And then we see even starting from 3rd chapter, like, you know. Anyway, I'm going to skip that section, but, you know, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is not focusing, yes, I'm a spirit soul, and then forget what is our nature right now. He actually says, whatever is your nature right now, act in that nature to actually realize our spiritual identity. And he makes it so practical. Like, he's actually telling Arjuna in 6th chapter about the mind. He's talking about yuktahara viharasya, you know, balancing our eating, sleeping habits, working habits. Then also, like, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, we see like 3rd chapter, 5th chapter, and then even in 8th chapter, he says like work. He's not saying, Arjuna, that just detach yourself. He's saying work, very practical. Like, okay, whatever is your nature, do that. But always thinking of Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita is like so practical, right? And then finally, coming to my last point of Prabhupada's mood and emphasis on the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, if you see, like so many different, like Lokmanya Tilak, I read about him, like how Prabhupada said Lokmanya Tilak does not understand Bhagavad Gita. Like, the main point that Prabhupada actually makes, that to actually understand Bhagavad Gita, one has to know who is the speaker and who is the listener. You know, without knowing the speaker and the listener, like even in a normal conversation, like if you hear two people talking, and if you do not know who they are or what is their mood in which they are talking, then it is so easy to, like, you know, get some wrong conception. Oh, he said this, or he said this. You know. But if you know who is that person and what is their mood, then you can understand. Similarly in Bhagavad Gita, like even in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, the first point that Prabhupada actually makes is, he says, that at least theoretically we have to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because without recognizing the speaker, we are not going to understand the Bhagavad Gita. And so many translations of Bhagavad Gita, when the word mam is used, you know, Krishna is saying me, then the authors are explaining that, oh, the unborn within you, unborn within Krishna, all those. As soon as that is said, well, you don't have a right understanding of Bhagavad Gita because you do not know who is the speaker of the Gita, right? And then, what is the listener? Listener is Arjuna. And in the first chapter, in the purpose, Prabhupada switches Arjuna's position between a conditioned soul and a pure devotee, to show that Arjuna's understanding of Bhagavad Gita is the perfect understanding. Param Dhama, Param Dham, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Param. That, oh Krishna, you are the supreme, you are the absolute. You know. So it is the perfect combination of who is the speaker, the Supreme Personality of God, and who is the listener. He is the perfect. So when we understand this, then we can actually start to enter the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. And then beyond that, what is the mood of the speaker and the listener, right? It is actually, when we see the sections like chapter 9, and like till the starting, it is always question answer. But after 8 also is a question Arjuna asks, Krishna is answering. But after that, Krishna does not need a question to speak about devotional service. It's just like outpouring of his heart. And Krishna says, well, this is Paramam Guhya. In 9.1, he actually says, this is the most confidential knowledge. And then, what does he say? Mad mana bhava, mad bhakto, mad yaji mam namaskaru. Become my devotee, just worship me, offer your obeisances to me. That is the essence. And again in the 18th chapter, he says, Paramam Guhya. I'll tell you the most confidential knowledge. What is that? Again he quotes, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakta Mad Yaji Mam Namaskar. So we see like Krishna's mood for the listener of the Bhagavad Gita is that of love. Is that of love. That he loves each one of us so much, and in return he's just asking, just reciprocate a little bit with that love. And we see that in 9:26. What is Krishna asking? Patram pushpam phalam toyam. He's not asking for much, he's just asking for that bhakti. So actually Bhagavad Gita is a book of love. So when we understand the speaker, the listener, and the mood of the speaker, then we can really understand Bhagavad Gita. And the entire theme of Bhagavad Gita is Krishna's love for each one of us. He's saying that, I love you all so much, just reciprocate with that love. That is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. And hence when there's any impersonal commentary, Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada is so heavy on that. Because like the theme of Bhagavad Gita is love of Krishna for each one of us. And as soon as you say impersonal, that just destroys that whole concept of love. It's just like a most false explanation, because the Bhagavad Gita's theme is that of a song, a loving song for Krishna to each one of us. So, anyway, that was like I wanted to speak more on this topic of love, that Krishna's mood, his compassion for each one of us, and that is the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And hence in the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually says, there is no servant more dear than me than one who shares, because Krishna's mood is, I want to share, that I love you all so much, just reciprocate with that love and all your problems will be solved. So Krishna's mood of love, compassion is overflowing in the Bhagavad Gita. And if anyone who actually assists Krishna in his mood, in his heart, in his mission, becomes so dear to Krishna. So that is the real understanding or the depth of the Bhagavad Gita. So that's clear. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Anyone has any? How are we distributing Bhagavad Gita? So today at 3 o'clock we'll be having the Yajna with recitation of all 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. And we'll be doing Sanskrit, and different devotees like Maharaj will be starting with the first chapter. He'll be reciting Sanskrit, and then different devotees will be leading over Zoom mostly the different chapters. And with the Yajna we'll have the entire recitation. And everyone is encouraged to sponsor a chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It's $108 for the sponsorship, and in the Yajna we'll offer prayers for you. And mainly the sponsorship, when you sponsor Bhagavad Gita, it actually helps us distribute Bhagavad Gita to hospices, to hospitals, to prisons, different libraries. So we are distributing Bhagavad Gita all over to different motels. So when you actually help sponsor Bhagavad